College football week 3 has come and gone, and what a weird week it was. It felt like a normal week. You know, we had the big games, we had all the drama, every single window delivered on a great game, but there are a few questions we're going to have. There are a few discussions of, I really don't know who's super good. We know some of the good teams, but my goodness, some of these teams just confused me this year. Tyler, Andrew, thank you for both joining me on this once again, but let's just get right into it. The first game to talk about, and what an amazing slate we ended up having, Georgia and Tennessee. I mean, this is one of those classic. Tennessee jumps out early. It's 14-7, 6 minutes into the game. It felt like a shootout was going to get started. Tennessee's offense looked fantastic in the opening quarter, and then Georgia woke up, changed the momentum of the game, started to get downhill, play some of that more classic Georgia football we're used to seeing. Tennessee has opportunities to win it, has the kick to win it in regulation, can't get it, and when you get to overtime with Georgia, it's usually not a scenario you want to be in. Georgia gets the massive win, 44-41, but Tennessee, I think Tennessee proved that they're going to be a fun team as well, but Georgia just a little bit better. Maybe one day Tennessee can beat Georgia again.
Yeah, you said it best.
I knew that was going to happen. I knew that was going to happen.
I was just going to say, you know, the SEC, we've talked about this off air, Kate, is that's best when you get a little bit of the infection of the 20-teens Big 12 in there. You had this one, a nice fun back and forth affair. Feel bad for Tennessee, though. You got to close this game out. You know, Aguilar's doing a great job slinging the ball around, but you have a couple of those mistakes in this game where you look back, you say, man, we should have had that one in front of the home crowd.
Yeah, no, Georgia just came out, and I mean, they, like you said, Kate, they played typical Georgia football. They just stayed in the game as long as they can, and then when they were ready to strike, they made their move. But they were able to rush the ball all game. And I mean, Frazier had a great day in the backfield, and then once Tennessee gets held to that field goal in overtime, I mean, you know that's trouble there. You got to get those 6 points at least there to start that overtime.
Yeah, and that was kind of my feeling with it, is once Tennessee, you know, and Tennessee had to kick a field goal there because, I mean, you don't want to get a risk of nothing and then Georgia can just win it with 3. But once that kick, I mean, it went through, thankfully, but it's one of those for them. But it's one of those, once that field goal started lining up, you just start to think, man, I've seen this story before. Georgia, and then next play, 15-yard run to start overtime. I was like, yeah, this thing is probably done. You look at the yardage, though. I mean, these two teams, stat-wise, tells about the same story game-wise. Only 6 yards of separation. Each team had 2 turnovers. Tennessee, though, 10 penalties, going to have to clean that up. Georgia 2 for 2 on 4th down. Pretty good on 3rd down as well, 8 for 17. And Georgia controlling the time of possession, 36 minutes to Tennessee's 24 when you round it out. And, I mean, you talked about the running game a little bit, Andrew. This is what Georgia does, running for 200 yards just about. And Gunnar Stockton making big plays when he had to. Georgia fans probably thinking we couldn't do this against Austin Peay, but we can do it against Tennessee. What else is new? Weird things happen with regularity in college football, and this is going to be another one of those funny things to think about. I guess we'll wait here. Neither of you got anything to say to that. So interesting. This happens every once in a while. I hope neither of you, both of you, are still in here. You both didn't abandon me, right? Okay. I'm not used to having the 5 to 10 second pauses after I say something. I assume that something bad has happened.
Trying to be polite, boys, Kate.
Okay, trying to be polite and quiet. I understand, but
not quiet, but just never mind.
Listen, Tyler, we're gonna figure this one way or the other. We're gonna get there. But speaking of getting there, Texas A&M got there. A 41-40 win for the Aggies over Notre Dame. This is a game that, I mean, Notre Dame, I don't want to say from the jump it felt like they should win this game, but you talk about a game of missed opportunities. You block a punt to start the game, one of the biggest momentum swings you could have in football. It goes in their favor. And Notre Dame is rocking, place is alive. You're up 7-0, 2 minutes in, and then a minute later, Texas A&M running back down the field with an 86-yard reception. Notre Dame had multiple opportunities where they get up double digits. They have an opportunity to not put the game away, but try to get a little bit firmer control of it, just needing one big stop, and Notre Dame really could never get it. And give credit to Texas A&M for that. They continued to battle back. They continued to fight hard. And at the end of the day, all that's going to be remembered about this game, we can talk about what happened in the first three quarters, but it's going to come down to Notre Dame had an opportunity to make this a 41-34 game. You have the bobbled snap on the PAT, and Texas A&M takes advantage of it. And for the first time in a long time, over a decade, A&M is able to go on the road and beat a top 10 team. That doesn't happen often for A&M, hasn't happened in a while, but it was a massive win for the Aggies. And I mean, I was getting some texts that, okay, I'm convinced this is the year Texas A&M doesn't go 8-4 this time. This might be the A&M team of destiny.
Yeah, you saw him get it done in all aspects of the game. I mean, Marcel Reed had a great game, 360 yards. Craver goes for 207 receiving yards and a touchdown. And credit to A&M, like you said, Kate, just battled their way through the game, similar to Georgia. They just stayed in the game, waited for their time to strike. And in that fourth quarter, late in the game, obviously, it was their time to strike. And, obviously, there's the big controversy with the missed holding call there at the end of the game as well,
Yeah.
which helped A&M's favor there, and obviously could have got called back. So, I mean, you can see that controversy as well. But no, credit to A&M for battling through the game even after going down early and finding a way to win this one.
And for Notre Dame in this, you look at this and you say, man, you're 4 points and a few plays away from being 2-0 with two good wins. But I think is what we've learned about Notre Dame to a degree is that while they may be a good team, they are a flawed team. We've seen those mistakes cost them, in these two losses. It's frustrating, I'm sure. And now you're kind of, I don't want to say on life support for the college football playoff, but you're going to have to be dang near perfect to this point. Notre Dame's going to have to find a way to start buckling down some of these wins. That's been the story for them, just not being able to close things out.
Absolutely. I mean, Notre Dame 0-2, barely in the top 25. A lot of people didn't want them in the top 25. That's a debate, Tyler, we already had on the AP poll reaction video. But Notre Dame cannot afford another loss. I think that's pretty obvious to say. A 9-3 Notre Dame team more than likely is not making it in unless there's a whole bunch of 9-3s and 10-2s to battle about in there. But Texas A&M, I mean, an incredible effort by the Aggies, and it felt weird seeing one of these go their way. I mean, how many times have we seen A&M in a situation where they have an opportunity to get a big win, they get across midfield, they get in a fourth down situation, and they don't convert. Something goes wrong, something goes against them, and A&M cannot finish the job. So, I mean, I cannot imagine what release of pain and pressure and all that must have felt for A&M fans to finally get a big win and to do it on the road as well. I mean, it wasn't you have your home crowd behind you. It was you came in and took this game from Notre Dame, and just a massive win. And keep in mind, A&M had 13 penalties in this game. Yes, they outgained Notre Dame. Yes, turnover battles, even all that stuff. A&M had plenty of mistakes. A&M had, Marcel Reed, we talked about, he had a great day, but 17 for 37 usually is not the type of numbers you want to see from a quarterback. It worked out for A&M today, but for Notre Dame too. I mean, Tyler, you already hit on it. This is the danger zone now for the Fighting Irish. You've got to try to basically win 10 in a row, which is not an easy feat no matter what their schedule looks like.
Nope, you got to grow up fast if you're Notre Dame and start locking it down.
Yeah, you got to find a way.
And this is where it hurts them not being in a conference for a conference championship game either. Like, this is where it's going to hurt it because now they're not going to have an opportunity to get another really good win. I mean, if you're going off rankings right now, their toughest game remaining is USC. They rank 25.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one when we finally get to it. But we still have a little bit of time before Notre Dame and USC get together. But moving on to the next game, we've talked about the two kind of big games of the day going into it. But then the morning game we got was amazing as well. Georgia Tech able to knock off Clemson. Don't call it an upset. Tyler, I told you technically Saturday morning at like 12:30 that Georgia Tech was going to beat Clemson. This was my upset lock of the week. Of course, we didn't do a video about it, so I don't have it. Tyler, you were the only person who heard me say this. But Georgia Tech, I mean, I've been high on them since last year. I love what Brent Key is able to build at Georgia Tech, what he's continuing to grow. And this Georgia Tech program looks like it can possibly take the next step this year. Clean game, three penalties for 16 yards, no turnovers, able to play Georgia Tech style of football, dominated the first half for the most part. I mean, able to force turnovers, able to sit on the ball when they need to, have a solid run game, had the lead going into halftime. Clemson wakes up in the third quarter, and Clemson looks like they're going to take advantage, and Georgia Tech, it's going to be another missed opportunity, another year they cannot get past Clemson, but a fire drill 55-yard field goal. It's hard enough to make a 55-yarder. It's hard enough to have to do the whole fire drill, but to do them together is an absolutely insane combination to have to put together at the end of a game, and it was executed flawlessly. And Georgia Tech, a successful whiteout, getting to storm the field. The Yellow Jackets are in a pretty good spot. Their schedule is really favorable for them the rest of the year. No Miami, no Florida State. Toughest game left is obviously Georgia. That's a non-con game all the way at the end of the year, the last week of the season. Everything right now looks pretty good for the Jackets. And if you're Clemson, I mean, it's an uphill battle. You're 1-2. You're out of the top 25 now. There's a lot that Dabo and company are going to have to work on.
Cade, I cannot confirm or deny if you actually did predict.
That is true. You were half asleep when we were talking to each other, to be fair.
I can confirm this. You have been singing their praises since the preseason, so I give you kudos there. And I guess the biggest question is Clemson a fraud for real? I mean, I saw people talk about this going into the year that, they're haters, so to speak, people that were not high on what they might bring this season is, they kind of ended last year with a good stretch to get themselves in the playoff. But for most of the season, they weren't really that awe inspiring as a team, right? And we're seeing a lot more of that than we are the playoff team. And that playoff team didn't exactly go out very well. So there's a lot more questions, I think, for Clemson after this game than maybe positives for Georgia Tech. I mean, Georgia Tech's got their style. Don't get me wrong. It's not pretty all the time, but by God, does it win. But I'm really curious to see where Clemson goes from here.
Yeah, a lot of credit to that Georgia Tech defense. I mean, that's what really set the tone in this game. Held Clemson scoreless in the opening quarter. It allowed Georgia Tech to kind of for themselves and help them get out to a good start. And I think the defense really controlled this game. Obviously, the offense had a little bit of a stall there in the third quarter when they went scoreless there to kind of even out that scoreless quarter. But then, again, the defense creates the opportunities for them at the end of the game and gives them a chance. And then Georgia Tech takes advantage. But I think this was all set in tone there by the Tech defense.
Yeah, this is going to be one of those. You look at it for Georgia Tech, and this is going to be remembered as, if they do make a playoff run, and it might be too early to be talking about this, but this feels like last year when they beat Miami, where it's one of those, this is where the program is going type of games. Against a team that you always seem to struggle against, you finally got over the hump. And, and Clemson might not be good this year. You might be right on that about Tyler. This might be a Clemson team that goes 9-3 or 8-4 or is really down or something like that. But the fact that they did it, and with how favorable that schedule now looks for the rest of the season, a monumental win for the Yellow Jackets. Also, Jamal Haynes-King, remember that name combination. They're fun to watch. I love watching Georgia Tech. I have made that is not a secret if you've watched literally any video on this channel in the last 2 years now. I enjoy what the Yellow Jackets are bringing to the table. And we've got to jump. We talked about Clemson a little bit. How about the other Tigers? Remember Clemson LSU? A few weeks ago, we talked about what a great game now is going to be. And maybe both of these teams just aren't that good. Because I'm sorry, LSU did not impress me. A 20-10 win over Florida with DJ Lagway throwing the platinum sombrero of 5 interceptions. And it took all 5 interceptions for LSU to win this thing by double digits. You can credit the defense, but Where is that offense? Nussmeier 15 for 27, that doesn't move the needle for me. I know that LSU has it in them to put points on the board. We saw them do it last year. But LSU just kind of, Florida's their own story. They could honestly be a loser of the week. DJ Lagway alone with 5 interceptions is loser of the week contender. But LSU gets outgained in this game. LSU has, a bunch of penalties in this one. LSU gets dominated on time of possession in this game. This felt like a Florida LSU upset type of game, except for the fact that DJ Lagway threw 5 interceptions. It was one of those funky games that went LSU's way, but I think both fan bases kind of come out of this one thinking we need to fire Billy Napier immediately, and another one going, are we really the number 3 team in the country?
Yeah, I mean, I think LSU's perfectly fine. I mean, I think they just got into a game where they knew what their opponent was coming off of a tough game, and I think LSU kind of almost played down to them. To be honest, I mean, you still saw them run the ball perfectly fine, averaging 4.5 yards a carry, leading back with 93 yards. The defense created turnovers, so I really don't think it screams that much about LSU. If I'm being honest, I think LSU is a team that's who they are. They're going to grind out wins, and they're going to find ways to still be there at the top. And I think when it's all said and done, you're going to see this team continue to compete for a spot, and you expect them to make it. But I think this was more just how bad Florida was, and LSU took advantage of it and played down to them a little bit.
I think the only solid thing to learn from this game is that LSU's defense is legit. I mean, they may say what you want about Florida and how they've been operating. LSU made that game absolutely miserable for the Florida offense. You don't have a guy throw 5 picks just because he makes all poor decisions. There's some good schemes, some good pressure, things of that nature in there. The one thing I wonder, are we at a point yet where we can confirm maybe some of these SEC quarterbacks are overrated? Look at Garrett
Maybe.
Nussmeier. He was supposed to be one of those guys, carrying the banner for potential Heisman candidacy. And, we could get to Texas at a different point, but Arch is kind of a similar story. I got to see more from that LSU pass game. We know they can run the ball, play good defense, which will get you very far um, in the SEC in any conference. But you're going to have to be able to pass the ball at some point. I don't know if I've seen enough from Nussmeier in that passing game to really inspire confidence yet.
Yeah, and that's why I say that about LSU. I don't think LSU's a bad team or anything like that. They're a good team, and they should be a great team. That defense is outstanding, but that's what worries me about LSU. They didn't play amazing against Clemson. Clemson's a good defensive team. You kind of expected that a little bit, but you had the letdown game last week as well. You could maybe kind of blame that, what's a lull in between a big game, and you've got a rivalry game coming up down the road against Florida. That makes sense a little bit. I can deal with that, but I expect to see a little bit more from LSU's offense. Maybe I'm panicking a little bit too early on the Tigers, but if it's a few weeks from now and they're still in the just trying to gut these games out, this is just going to be their identity for the year, we might have to go back and reevaluate what we all thought at the beginning of the year. That might be a mid-October type of video to see how all these quarterbacks we all thought were going to be amazing, and none of them have really shown it yet. We'll talk about that more when we get to a certain game that happened down in Austin that may or may not be a loser of the week contender despite winning. But we've got another game to talk about before I want to bring up that one, because the Fighting Diego Pavias are back, and they are still a lot of fun to watch. Vanderbilt not only beats South Carolina to break a 16-game losing streak, they absolutely dismantled South Carolina in this game, 31-7. And yes, Lenore Sellers got hurt in the second quarter. Yes, we'll have to continue to see how South Carolina looks and how that situation develops. I hope he comes back as quick as possible, as healthy as possible, because I think it was more of a concussion type of deal than anything else, but it's not my job to speculate on that. What I can tell you is that Vanderbilt absolutely ran with this game in the second half, and South Carolina tried to put up something, but it really wasn't a lot. Vanderbilt is 3-0. We've got to start talking about the idea of a top 20 Vanderbilt. They play Georgia State next week. The schedule looks good for a 5-0 Vandy coming in to Tuscaloosa to take on Alabama. we might see Vanderbilt get a game day appearance when they go to Alabama. I'm just throwing that out there a little bit early, so if it happens, I feel pretty good about that. South Carolina, 4 turnovers in this one, 8 penalties, a lot of mistakes. Vanderbilt was able to play Vanderbilt's style of football. They slow you down, they take forever. Diego Pavia is going to make a weird play where he should get sacked for a 15-yard loss, and it turns into a 7-yard gain, and you just wonder, how does this keep happening? That's who Vanderbilt is. That's what their identity's been established as 2 years in a row now, and it's another big win for the Commodores.
Yeah, I think you gotta be really disappointed if you're South Carolina. Obviously, you lose your quarterback, but more importantly, I think it's more than just that in a game like this. I mean, if you lose a game 17-10, 10-7, something like that, then I think you can pinpoint it all to that. But I mean, giving up 31 points, I think that's alarming to your defense. And I get it. Obviously, having your quarterback can change the game, change the style of the game, but still, your defense. When you lose a player like that, somebody on your team's got to be able to step up, and especially a defensive unit like that if you're the number 11 team going into that game. So I think, yes, you lost your quarterback, but this is a very alarming game for South Carolina. And again, I think you got to come away with this very disappointing because, yeah, no one step up there in the absence.
I think on that disappointing part is, and you're kind of good at it, Andrew. Yes, you're already in a tight game before he went out, but once Lenore's Sellers went out, seemed like the team, I don't want to say quit, but kind of felt like they knew that loss was coming. And you can't have that, if you want to be in the upper echelon of the SEC. We've seen teams power through it before. Yes, Sellers offers a lot for that offense, and a lot of people, on that team seem to kind of rally around him. But when you're in a fight like that against a Vanderbilt team that on paper you're supposed to be a lot better than, you got to go out and finish that. And when he went out, you were still in the game, but then things start to kind of come apart a little bit and you kind of lose your way in that game. For Vandy, I mean, Cade, you kind of touched on it. This is another one of those, wins that when you point to what this program is heading towards, potentially great things. I mean, they know they're not going to ever lead an NIL or anything like that, but if they could get a culture of saying, hey, we know we're in the SEC, but we're going to do it with guys that we develop and guys that, believe in what we are doing, not tied to money or anything like that. You can do something really special with limited resources. So I'm curious to see how Vanderbilt tries to carry this momentum.
I don't know, Tyler. If all the smart rich people who are Vanderbilt alums remember that they have a football team and are winning, that NIL situation could look pretty nice if those people actually want to care about football for a year or two. But thankfully they don't, and they choose to only be good at baseball and now football. I guess they've decided to be good at. But also, want to shout out Blaze Berlowitz. He got some playing time. Still an amazing name. Loved covering the kid. Loved covering the kid in high school. Yeah. So I just got to give him a shout out because that's still a fun name. It made me laugh seeing him come and be like, "Yep, there he is. Let's go." But we've got one final game to talk about in Games of the Week. We're going to kind of merge best of the rest with Games of the Week because this is a game that usually would go on there. It wasn't a crazy enough game to move the needle nationally because a whole lot of other stuff was going on at the same time. But if you had this game on in the quad box, or if you turned it over just to see some weird shenanigans happen, it's Arkansas and it's Ole Miss. This game cannot be normal. This game has never been normal. It will not be a normal game. A Big 12 shootout broke out in the second quarter, and then it went back to normal. 41-35, Ole Miss gets the win over the Hogs. Arkansas had an opportunity to win the game, but the only turnover of the game comes in the final 2 minutes in the Ole Miss red zone, and the Rebels are able to survive with a backup quarterback in Trinidad Chambliss, who was at Ferris State last year, by the way, was the best player in D2 last year, comes to Ole Miss, is the backup, gets his opportunity, and starts lighting it up for Ole Miss to now be 2-0 in the SEC. Offense looked great. Both teams really efficient on third down. This was a lot of fun to watch. This was a great keep your eye on it because if you blink, another touchdown's going up on the board.
Yeah, it was, and credit to Lane Kiffin and crew. This is one of those wins that, when you're stringing together a season, right? You get to these type of games where it's that rival sense, and it's going to be one of those games where weird things are going to happen just
I mean, a
because
basketball
they
rolled
grit
onto the
out.
field. It's a football game, and we had basketballs out there.
I mean, exactly. So when you got that going on, you got your backup quarterback in there. Do you still find a way to get this one done? I mean, that's hats off to your program. Now, for Kiffin, I think they're still in a spot where he knows if they want to have a real shot at playoffs and everything like that. They've got a few things to work on. Obviously, defensively, Arkansas torched you a little bit in stretches there, so you got to work on that. But when you come in with your backup quarterback and still produce like you did, that's got to be a great feeling.
Yeah, and that's what we kind of just talked about with South Carolina. Is even though you're missing a key piece, it's about stepping up and rallying behind the next guy and the next man up, and that's what Ole Miss did, and they won this game in a very traditional Ole Miss way. I feel like these high-scoring games, and they were able to get the job done. And I think that just speaks volume to the team they have around these guys, and the atmosphere they have in that locker room to kind of step up and find a way to win on all aspects of the field there, from the rushing and passing game. And they really got the job done, and now it puts them in a spot if they can take care of Tulane to get a big showdown with LSU here in a few weeks.
And those will both be fun games for Ole Miss, by the way. Those are going to be. Tulane was able to get a win over Duke. That was a big win for Tulane, trying to get the win over your former quarterback. So that's going to be fun. Ole Miss is going to have some more shootouts, I feel like, incoming. But shout out to Talon Green, because that man is a baller, but he is trapped on Arkansas. So unfortunately, he is destined to have some soul-crushing losses. And this was one of them. I mean, you look at the stats: 22 for 35, 305 and a TD, 14 carries for 115 and a TD on the ground. You score 35 points and you lose. That is soul crushing to have that great of a day and still get beat. But that's life when you play Ole Miss sometimes. You can put up some great offensive numbers and it just doesn't matter. But it is finally time for winners and losers of the week. Tyler, we'll start with your winner because it was a game we've already talked about. Vanderbilt beating South Carolina.
I mean, you got to go this way, right? For Vanderbilt, you don't care how, you don't care why. You went in, you beat South Carolina 31-7. Nobody can take that away from you, no matter the circumstances. And now you've got to be able to sell that going forward. Say, look, fellas, we just walked into one of those teams that was a kind of an SEC potential favorite going into the season, a dark horse, and we ate their lunch. So we got to keep that going. And also, shout out maybe Theo Vaughn,
Oh,
maybe one
God.
big in all this too. Still to be decided. May get a little date out of it. We'll
Oh,
find out.
maybe. Well,
But
Pavia
yeah, Vanderbilt.
responded. I don't
He
know if you
did. He
saw.
did.
Okay, good.
I
Yeah, we're
did. I
the
saw that. Yes, he's
good.
trying to swing a date himself. So
Yeah.
kudos to both those guys. Hey, guy, gotta. Yeah, I mean, add a little extra stakes makes more fun.
Yeah. Just absolutely. I mean, what a fun day again for Vanderbilt. Talked about it a little bit already, but what you're seeing them build there is incredible. What Clark Lee is able to start to really get with this Vanderbilt program is nothing short of incredible. To see Vandy being able to not only compete, but to blow out top 15 teams like South Carolina, it feels unheard of. It's like where we were in the Big 12 with Kansas a decade ago and seeing the rise kind of Lance Leipold, seeing Matt Campbell do it at Iowa State as well. These guys who come in, stay at these programs and build them up long term and make them competitive and contenders like we've seen with Iowa State now. Maybe Vanderbilt does the same thing. I'm not going to say Vanderbilt's going to win the SEC or anything in a few years. Don't get me wrong. But you start putting a few 6, 7, maybe an 8, maybe a 9-win season together if the schedule goes your way. Vanderbilt could be one of those teams that they just become another SEC team, which for Vanderbilt would be a massive improvement over most of their football history. But I have kind of an interesting one, I guess you could say. A game that maybe not a lot of people thought about. Maybe not a lot of people ever were going to pay attention to. But the Delaware Blue Hens have beaten an FBS team at home now. They are 2-1 on the season. They played Colorado tough for a half, and they have an amazing quarterback whose name I could not pronounce because I cannot pronounce Italian names half the time for the life of me. With Minicucci, is that right? Minicucci? I don't know how to pronounce his name, but I know he's freaking good at football. Delaware beats UConn in overtime, 44-41. The Blue Hens still have not lost at home yet. They get a big win over an FBS opponent. First time they've done that since they've joined the FBS. You got to give some love to Delaware. That is my winner of the week.
There goes
Yeah, that
ball,
looks
baby.
like
Stick with the ball.
What?
high scoring game. Looked like a shootout.
It was. It was a lot of fun. If you had the ability, go back and watch this game because this was incredible. Delaware, 9.5-point underdogs. Doesn't matter. Blue Hens with 5-12 in terms of offense. This was a blast to watch. To see Delaware get to compete, one of those teams that I always enjoyed as a kid because I thought they looked like knockoff Michigan. I just thought they were funny because they were called the Blue Hens. What are we doing here? But now I've come to respect it. Good for Delaware. Great win. Put them as a winner of the week. So, Andrew, this is your first time, I think, doing this since we've done winners and losers. So, who is your winner of the week, Andrew?
Yeah, I think there's a couple left to pick from, but I'm going to go with the A&M win over Notre Dame. I think you mentioned it, Kate, earlier, going on the road, doing something you haven't done in a while. It's a game that usually goes the wrong direction for Texas A&M, but maybe this does change the outlook of their season, change the direction of it. It puts them in a good spot. A lot of hype around them now heading into SEC play, and you obviously have a tough opponent to open your SEC schedule. So hopefully this gives them momentum. And I think this is a game that can really spark their season. And if it continues to go well, you can look back on it as, okay, our season changed at this point, rather than if you lose that game, you could see it go down just from the momentum killer it was. So I think that's a win that can really change the outlook of the season just based off of momentum. So I got to go with A&M.
All good picks. All good picks, I would say. You can't really go wrong with some of these, but now we've got to go to losers of the week. And Tyler, we kind of made this really easy on ourselves. I'll let you go first because 2 coaches have been fired already. So we kind of have 2 to go with. I'll let you go first.
It's got to be UCLA for me. You start out the season with your hyped transfer quarterback that you paid a lot of money for. He's talking trash. His dad's talking trash. We left the SEC. It's going to be the best thing. Fourth, your coach is saying we're on the way back. The program's coming back, folks. You get blown out by Utah 43-10. Okay, Utah might be a good team. That's embarrassing, but you can recover. You got UNLV the next game, right? You'll be okay.
No.
Nope, you lose that one 30-23. Finally, you got a gimme. It's New Mexico. You say, okay, if we're going to get this season right, if we're going to get some momentum going, we just go take care of business. It's New Mexico, guys. No, you get pants 35-10. Your quarterback's clearly overpaid. Your coach is now gone, and you are 0-3 against kind of mild competition. It is rough to be a Bruin.
And to add insult to injury, Coach Eck of New Mexico, who, by the way, amazing story, helped build Idaho back up in the FCS. Now he's here. If you listen to his post game, he gave maybe one of the most stone cold damning quotes I've ever heard a coach give about a program. To say, well, this was a great win for us because we're going to face better competition in the Mountain West than what we saw tonight. That is absolutely brutal to say about about Big Ten UCLA. Did you go up there, absolutely destroy them, and then say, yeah, we'll face tougher teams in the Mountain West than UCLA. UCLA's not a good team. He didn't say that directly, but it felt heavily implied. New Mexico, nice win. We will continue to watch the Lobos with interest, but my loser of the week has to go with a game that I don't want to say you could see this coming from a mile away because you couldn't. Old Dominion, you feel like maybe they can hang around in this one. They've done it before. They've beaten Virginia Tech before. But surely this is going to be the get-right game for Drones. Surely if something goes wrong, Garrett Rangel will show up at some point. He is a talented backup quarterback. He nearly beat BYU last year before he got hurt at OSU. And no, it was bad. It was really bad. It was maybe one of the worst games you could have ever imagined as a Virginia Tech fan. This is the nightmare realized. Everything that Frank Beamer built at Virginia Tech has been torn down, blown up, and then blown up a second time. It was 31-0 midway through the third quarter. Don't let that 45-26 that you're looking at on the screen fool you. This game was nowhere close at any point. This was Old Dominion the entire way. There was no way Brent Pry should have been allowed to survive after this game. And Virginia Tech finally made a good decision by firing him the next morning. I don't know what you do now if you're Virginia Tech. I would imagine one Shane Beamer is going to be called. I don't think he accepts that job. He wants to build his own path, and I don't blame him. But if you're Virginia Tech, you got to figure out what you're doing now, because this is a program that has had that proud history, has had this tradition going back to the 90s now, but there's not a whole lot left to be pleased about in Blacksburg. There's not a whole lot to be neutral about in Blacksburg either, however. A lot of angry Hokies out there, and I feel bad for them. You get absolutely dragged by Old Dominion, that's never going to feel good. But
No, I think it's a solid pick. I mean, anytime you got to get rid of your coach, I mean, that makes you a loser already.
Yeah, Andrew, we kind of cheapened out. We took the two coaches getting fired away from you, but
took the easy stuff.
Yeah, we took the easy route this week. Honorable mention, of course, we have to throw it in here because we would not be doing this correctly if we did not mention the fact that Kansas State did lose to Arizona on Friday. So we will continue the tradition set that Avery Johnson went 13 for 29, 88 yards. Are we going to make fun of Kansas State every week? No, we're just going to make fun of them until they actually live up to their potential. So that might be every week at this rate. They find a new way to disappoint us all. K-State, what the hell are you doing? You're 1-3. I thought you were going to be in the Big 12 title game. I was very clearly wrong. But Andrew, with that being said, now you have the floor. Who is your loser of the week?
Well, I'm going to stay with the Friday night game and stay in the Big 12, and I'm going to go with Colorado. After all that talk all week, you're going to go jump over your own depth chart there. You go with the third string quarterback, and it obviously did not fix anything. I think Deion Sanders, you tried to talk the big game there, starting the third string quarterback, and Ryan, is it Staub?
Yes,
I think
Staub,
is that he says his last name.
Yes.
But yeah, he goes out there. He struggles all day. His QBR is only 27. So, I mean, again, just struggles all day. And then, I mean, I don't know. They acted like it was going to fix everything, but instead of going like down your depth chart, if you were going to make the quarterback change, they just jumped to the third string quarterback there. And at halftime, it looked like maybe they started figuring things out as they got it down to a 2-point game at 16-14. But then Houston just takes control in the second half. So I got to go with Colorado because they look like they're in a mess of a situation.
I mean, like I said, it's to Houston. Houston's not supposed to be a good Big 12 team.
Believe in Willie Fritz, Tyler.
Oh. That's ugly.
That's all I have to say. Connor Wigman, he might actually be a good quarterback finally, now that he's in the right system with Slade Nagel and company down there in Houston. Willie Fritz, that's like the holy trinity for me. So we got to cover all three teams this week of all three coaches of Brent Key, Willie Fritz, and Clark Lee. So I'm happy that we got all three mentioned in here. We didn't get to throw Dillingham in here, so I guess we'll throw him in as well. We'll talk about that more, I guess, when we do the NFL stuff and we talk about Cam Scattaboo again. But it is finally time to get to the bonus loser of the week. We don't do this often. I don't think we've ever done this, actually. But I have to throw in a special mention because, Tyler, you know what I'm about to say. What are you doing, Texas? What is this? What are you doing? How did you almost lose to UTEP for a half? Like, UTEP, honest to God, Tyler and Andrew, correct me if you feel different. How was this a game? You're a 40.5-point favorite, man. Like, it's 7-3. Arch throws the luckiest non-interception in the world. And if that thing gets picked off, it's honest to God a 1-point game or UTEP is winning at halftime. This was a disastrous game for Texas. And, Ohio State, that can be forgiven. Ohio State's a really good defense. I get that.
Sure.
We talked about that already, that, maybe Arch will get better. Maybe we're all overreacting. Then you play San Jose State. San Jose State's supposed to be a good Mountain West team, we're all pretty sure. Maybe they're not going to win. They're not going to stand out as like an 11-win team or anything crazy, but they're going to be okay. And Arch still doesn't look great. He had 10 straight incompletions in this game in the second quarter. He got booed off the field. And what did Steve Sarkisian say after the game, Tyler? He said, "We are close. I can feel it. We're so close." And you know what I
Not
hear when
regretted we
I
are
hear
close.
that? I hear Lincoln Riley all over again. Texas is what OU looks like last year. The defense is elite, don't get me wrong, but my goodness, Texas is beat up right now. Arch Manning looks like an okay-ish quarterback for, a group of 5 team. Both these quarterbacks were 5 stars, by the way. Malachi Nelson and Arch Manning were both 5 stars. That's very weird to say for a Texas UTEP game. But my God, this was pathetic. I had no intention on watching this other than the first drive or two, but I got a successful hate watch the entire first half until 1 second left until halftime. I was very fulfilled this weekend. Texas does not intimidate me in the slightest this year. That defense is scary, but man, Texas versus Florida might be a really bad game in a few weeks. That might be a disaster in the making for somebody.
Can you
That
imagine
was pretty
telling
fun.
Texas fans last year that they may want Quinn Ewers back?
I know, it's kind of
Could you
incredible.
imagine that? Oh, it's rough.
It's bad. This is one of those games that was supposed to be a get right game. You're just supposed to look at it. You take UTEP seriously for a half and you go, you know what? Good for them. They played with a lot of heart. They're just not on our level. Texas fans were sweating bullets in the second quarter because it's 7-3 and the offense looks incapable of doing anything besides running the ball. And maybe Arch Manning is just that. Maybe he's just a run first quarterback secretly instead. I don't know, but Texas needs to figure something else out because SEC play, teams are going to figure this out. If they can't throw the ball, you're going to get the box stacked on you until you can throw it. You know how we know that, Tyler? What did we watch happen last season? Teams absolutely hammered Oklahoma until they proved they could throw the ball, which they couldn't. And Texas is now in the same boat. So we will wait to see if Texas can figure this out or not, and if they get healthy or not. Because if they can't do either of those, it's not looking like a pretty season in Austin. With all that hype going into it, I can't believe we are at the point where Texas fans are saying maybe it's time to bench Arch. Maybe we were too harsh on Quinn Ewers. Maybe he should have came back for another year. I don't know, but I don't understand this Texas team right now. I really don't. I really do not understand what Texas is doing right now. I don't know why Arch looks completely different. I don't know where the sidearm stuff came from. I don't know why it looks like he winces when he throws. But Texas is not in a good space right now. They just aren't. They just aren't. But that will just about do it here for week number 3. We can close the book on this one, get ready for week number 4, what will be another fun week. A lot of big games coming up there as well. But folks, as always, if you made it all the way through, we always appreciate it. Feel free to like the video, leave a comment down below. What'd you agree with? What'd you disagree with? So let us know how your team did this week. Was it a good week? Was it a bad week? There's a whole lot of football left. There's a lot of room for improvement. Unless maybe you're a, Kansas State fan. We got to get one more dog in on Kansas State. Just continues to disappoint us this entire season. What are you doing, K-State? But other than that, folks, if you enjoyed if you enjoyed all the stuff, we do sincerely appreciate it. Almost to 160 subscribers. Can we get to 200 by the end of football season? I'd like to think so. But you got to subscribe. You got to do all that fun stuff. It's free. It takes a few minutes out of your day to hit some buttons. If you're listening over on Spotify, give us 5 stars over there as well. We will have NFL content this week, I promise. We have a lot to talk about. We have to talk about Eagles Chiefs. Andrew, we're going to have to talk to you about how the tush push is bad apparently now because it gives Philly an unfair advantage of being good at football. But other than that, folks, until next time, have a good one, everybody.